How do you kind of manage conflict?
There's an understanding. And I think that understanding is we have an enemy.
If you had a buddy come to you and say, I'm thinking about hiring my kid, having them work with me.
Nothing better. You get to spend time around your kids. Nothing better than that.
What kind of conflicts have you seen arise in that space? This is the Disruptive Hope Podcast. Hope sees, hope engages, hope belongs, hope builds. Hope disrupts the narrative of despair, and in the tension of holding both sorrow and joy, we invite hope to redefine the lens through which we see and interact with the world. Embrace the challenge and become an agent of hope in unlikely places. Welcome to the Disruptive Hope Podcast.
Welcome to Legacy Shift. This is a podcast where we talk about the pitfalls and the joys of working with family in organizations that last. I'm your host, Dwayne Weehunt, co-founder of SOS International.
Hey, welcome in. My name's Dwayne Weehunt. I'd like to welcome you to this season of the SOS podcast. We're calling it Legacy Shift. I'm really excited about this season because we're talking all about working with family. We've noticed that not only in our ministry do we work with a lot of families, but we have a lot of businesses that support us that are also family-oriented businesses. So I'm excited. We're going to get to interview some of those people. And we're going to start out today. It's me and my daughter, Hannah Weehunt, who's in the ministry. So this is Hannah.
Hi, I'm excited to get to do this with you. The nuances of working with family are real.
Yeah, they are real.
They are real.
For sure. And we know it well.
We do know it well. I think to some degree it's kind of funny that you and I are starting this out because I think if we polled the rest of the family, they would say personality-wise, we operate very similarly, or we have in certain areas.
Yeah.
You look a little offended by that, which makes me a little offended.
Why would I be offended by that? I mean, I think it's absolutely true that you are the most like me, but which means that our viewpoint on life sometimes is very similar.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And sometimes the communication style can be similar, and
which sometimes that's not good.
Yeah, pros and cons really can conquer some crazy mountains together and also cause some crazy mountains together.
Yeah, we can.
So it kind of just depends. So obviously I'm one of your children that work with you.
Yeah.
You have multiple children that work with you.
I do. And my wife.
And your wife. I was going to get there.
Yeah.
One of those children is in the room with us today, but refuses to be on camera ever. Your son, Noah.
Yeah.
I'm still holding out that you're going to get him on this show at some point.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I would love to have his remarks. He's a brilliant young man, so we need to make that happen. There's a lot we could cover here.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I just kind of want to go back to the beginning. Starting with a question of, did you always realize that you would want to work with your family?
You know, I don't know if I always realized that I wanted to work with my family.
Do you want to work with them now?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay, it's one of the greatest joys of my life.
Good to know.
But I always felt like, you know, Mom and I were both called to what we did, and of course, our number one call is to be a parent above anything else that we did. And I remember the first time I went to Asia by myself. This was 32 years ago now. And I was seeing things. I was being exposed to things for the first time. It was nothing like where we lived. It was nothing like where I grew up. It was just so different. And I found myself like I would have some kind of brand new cultural experience. I would encounter something like an elephant walking down the street or something. Mm-hmm. And my first thought was always, man, how would my kids process that? And so I always knew that I wanted you guys to be a part of the experience. Mm-hmm. I always knew that I wanted you guys to be with us. We never, felt like that we should put you in boarding school and leave you somewhere or whatever. We always felt like we were a family. And if Mom and I were called to this, then we were all called to this. I remember the very first time I took all of you, we didn't have Noah yet, so there was 3 of us. And, I'd been going to Asia, I don't know, maybe 2-3 times without the rest of you. And so then we landed in a huge metropolitan area in Asia, and you had to take a cab from the airport to the hotel. It was 1:00 in the morning, and there's still chaos everywhere, but there were people sleeping all over the street, and we're driving along in silence, and you are just staring out the window. You're little.
Yeah, I was like 3 or 4.
I think you were turned 4 on the trip.
Yeah, I was little.
So like you guys are staring out the window, and all of a sudden, my middle daughter, Carrie, turned around. She whipped around, and she said, "Look at all these people sleeping on the road. What have you been doing?"
High expectation.
Like I'm going to be the, the answer to solving
You'd
homelessness,
been going.
but I'd been going. So, it's those kind of things. You get a different perspective when you're around people that have a different worldview than you do. And, just for our family to be exposed to that, just to understand how other people think and how their culture views things and how they individually view things is such a valuable tool. Whether you're a leader or whether you're, whatever you are, being able to see what's happening through the eyes of somebody else is always amazing. So I don't know if I always knew we were going to be, but I knew we were called to be a family because we were a family.
Yeah.
And I knew Mom and I were called to this, so it meant all of us were.
That's funny that you share that story because obviously I think Carrie was like 6 when that happened.
Yeah.
But I think probably to some degree you still feel that dynamic at play where like we'll see a refugee crisis somewhere in the world, and I know for sure I do. I don't know if Christy does, but I look at you and I'm like, okay, so how do we fix it?
Yeah.
And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
What do we do? We can do this. Come on.
Yeah.
Tell us what we're doing.
Yeah.
So that dynamic actually never went away. It
Yeah.
just, we jumped into it.
Yeah.
And we'll help brainstorm the fixing. There still is the, okay, great.
Yeah.
How are we gonna do it?
It's funny you say that. There's a major problem happening in Central America right now, and you and I have been down there quite a few times together. You've been documenting stuff, and of course, we have a partner down there. And, you and I will be in a situation and all of a sudden we'll discover, oh my gosh, there's a huge problem right here. And then we just drag our partner into that huge problem. But he willingly goes. I mean, they jump into it full feed, and, they believe that the local church is the answer. And so we have the right partner, but we're dragging other people into this experience too.
You got to keep it interesting.
We do that.
Keep it a little chaotic.
Yeah, we do that for
you
sure.
Enter the chaos to bring the order.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, I do want to talk about the navigating it now, but even as we're talking about, back in the day, because I am your daughter, I've had a unique experience of really seeing you from a very early age cultivate us all doing things together, cultivating, gifts and callings on our lives. But also I have very vivid memories of Saturday mornings where most people were watching cartoons. You had us all gathered around the table reading a book together. We were reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we were reading, Best Question Ever, Andy Stanley. So there was always this high value on developing the way we think.
Yeah.
Can you speak into that a little bit about how you came to that value and then how you see that kind of helped set up some dynamics for us to be in?
It's a biblical value, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. How's transformation happen in your life? It comes by the renewing of your mind. And so we have this amazing gift from God, which is our whole being, but especially our mind, and that needs to be fashioned and molded. And we obviously can have really good ways of thinking, and we can have really bad ways of thinking, and we all have that. I have that. So I just think, every family, right or wrong, whether you're intentional or not intentional, you're setting up values by what you do, not by what you say. And your children are watching. And so I think knowing that, Mom and I wanted to be real intentional in making sure that you were equipped with the idea of learning, with expanding, with growing. And once again, from looking at things from somebody else's viewpoint, is that's such a rare quality today. Even in our country, we see so much division, and people can't talk to each other when they have differing viewpoints. I mean, the way you solve a problem is you take and see what's going on through somebody else's eyes, and you try to help bring healing or health or wholeness to a situation by changing the way you think and the way they think. So I think, as far as the, reading and being exposed to different ways of looking at life, I think that was intentional.
Yeah. So early days, you invited us in to really work alongside you, but we were kids and we were learning. I mean, I remember I started photographing at 16, but I went to uni and got a degree before I ever came on staff here. And Christy, the oldest of us, who will be in the next episode with you talking about secession, she was the first. Well, obviously, I'm excluding Leslie in this conversation because you guys started this together. So, but she was the first family member you brought on full time, outside of yourself. Was that a no-brainer for you? What were the dynamics, and how did you initially come to that decision and kind of embrace it?
And I think it's important to say she wasn't our first employee.
Yeah.
We already had employees.
Yeah.
Right? And so she also went to university. She got a business degree international business degree from Texas Tech.
She's brilliant.
Yeah, she's very smart. Yeah. I mean, she is brilliant's a good word for her.
She might be the smartest of us all.
Yeah, probably.
They'll get to know.
Probably, yeah. But the thing about that is, of course, I have friends that are very successful business people, and they all told me, "Hey, let her go work for a Fortune 500 company. She has that caliber. Let her learn some things and then come back." And of course, me not knowing, I thought, okay, that's a great plan. Went to Christy and said, "Hey, this is what I think we should do." And she started crying and said, "No, I'm not doing that, Dad. This is what God has called me to do. I'm coming and doing this, and you can't keep me from doing it." One thing I would say is the things that SOS does, they're hard things to be involved with, and especially if your heart isn't in it. And I would say the constant battle that all of us face, whether we're family or not family, just whoever works around us and with us, I think the constant battle is to keep your heart. And, Christy wanted me to understand this was her heart. This is what she wanted to do. And so, she was the first employee that we hired on, and actually
she wasn't the first employee. She was
not the first employee, the first family member that we hired on. And of course, she had been doing this for most of her life. So we sent her immediately to Asia when we hired her, and she completely set up all the systems and office and communication and accountability and all those things that really let that region of the world grow and explode. Of course, we had the relationships. Mom and I are very good at relation building, and Mom and I are very good at picking partners. I think it's just God-given gift. We had the right people. We had the right partners. We had the right employees. But when Christy came along, she added some organization to it that allowed growth. So Christy was the first child you brought on.
And obviously now I work for you full time. Noah works with you full time. Carrie has done a lot of stuff with us.
Yes.
She is on our panel,
Yes.
very involved in our red light rescue panel.
Yes.
And has helped us with some natural disaster stuff. That's
Yeah.
what she studied. So she's very involved. She never came on full time,
Right.
but has done so much work with us, which is definitely an interesting dynamic. Probably for her more than any of us. She probably sits around the table sometimes and goes, these people talk about work all the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like she does jump into it, and she's obviously
As passionate as the rest of us.
As passionate as us and as involved as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of us here working.
Yeah.
Obviously that brings up conflicts.
Yeah.
I don't know if people would say we're great at it. We're definitely we're a direct conflict kind of family.
Yeah, we are.
We're not brush it under the rug.
No.
We're very respectful.
Yeah.
We're very honoring of each other's viewpoints
Yeah.
and opinions, but we're definitely very direct.
Yeah. And we're multi-generations, obviously.
Uh-huh.
So that means we do have differing opinions and viewpoints of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of as conflict has come up, obviously, we would both sit in different seats in those conflicts, but how have you kind of helped manage and being aware of that? We do have a lot of people that work here that aren't family.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, just a lot happening going into that. How do you kind of manage conflict with family in the middle of work?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, there's an understanding. I think Leslie and I, we have this understanding. I think it's the bedrock of our relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think that understanding is we have an enemy. Mm-hmm. But my enemy is never Leslie. Mm-hmm. Leslie is fully on my team. Mm-hmm. She's fully on my side. There's nobody that wants blessing and goodness and wholeness and life to come into my life than Leslie. And mm-hmm. same vice versa. Mm-hmm. And I would say that that's true across the board. That's true with our employees. That's true with our kids that work with us. That's true between our kids. I just feel like it's just an understood value mm-hmm. that we have. And so if we do have conflict, that conflict isn't anything but I think it should be done a different way. Mm-hmm. I think it should be viewed as this. I think we should communicate it like that. I think we shouldn't do that and we should do this. And I think that the important thing to remember, whoever it is, employee or family, is their viewpoint is valid. Mm-hmm. Their viewpoint is their viewpoint. Mm-hmm. And I think, we have to practice and embrace change happens through other people's viewpoint. Mm-hmm. My viewpoint isn't always right, mm-hmm. right? And if I did make it, you used an interesting word, we're very honoring with one another. If I was to say, hey, that's dishonoring for you to say that, well, that just shuts down the conversation, and that's never anybody's heart, right? So I think just being open to the fact that we are just all pushing and rowing together and trying to get something done that's difficult. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes I need to walk away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need to walk away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Leslie needs to walk away. Sometimes Christy needs to walk away. Sometimes Dwayne and Christy find themselves trying to be priest between Leslie and Hannah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's other ways. One thing is, in the whole, the entire 30-year span of this, mm-hmm. there's never been anything that's been a major issue or problem. Yeah.
Which I do think that we are very fortunate in the sense that, we all are in this.
Yeah.
Because we want to help kids.
Yeah.
We have a heart for at-risk children.
Yeah.
And I do think that the suffering in the early years of kind of building it together, definitely did establish the grit to do it, but also the, like, ain't nobody in this for any type of glory, any type of wealth, there ain't much to be had.
No.
You know, it's hard. It's suffering. It's stepping into someone else's suffering, and that causes you personal suffering. And I do think that in some ways we're very fortunate that that is the reality, because even if, like, you know, we're having conflict because of different methods of how we want to do something, there really is the ability to trust that the other person's heart is for whatever child that we're dealing with.
Yep.
And it is just a negotiation of best way to take care of it.
Yep.
And then it helps you, there's no win or lose.
Yeah.
There is what's best for this kid.
Yeah.
This is you're better in this arena, I'm going to let you run.
Yeah.
Or I'm better in this arena, you're going to let me run.
Yep.
And it kind of helps, you know, where a lot of family businesses don't have, we're not a family business, but we're family working together. Don't have that bedrock to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I do think that we've been very fortunate,
and
I'm very thankful for that.
And I would say that extends past family into partnerships and into employees.
Yeah.
I mean, our employees are just amazing.
Insane. Yeah.
They're amazing.
They could literally do anything.
Yeah.
In the whole world, and they choose to be here.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, they sacrifice to be here,
Yeah,
right? They all could do a lot better than they're doing here, but they have the same heart. They want to help an at-risk kid.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it's easy to trust.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to realize, okay, we're all rowing in the same direction, you know.
So there is an interesting dynamic of having, you know, family and non-family members working together.
Yeah.
What kind of conflicts have you seen arise in that space?
I think we have to be careful to make sure that it doesn't become family and non-family members. I think we have to be SOS International, doing it together. I think we have to make sure that we don't value one person's opinion above another's because they're family or not family. I think it's really important that everybody has a voice. And that we listen to everybody's voice. So I mean, I think that dynamic could probably best be answered by somebody who's not a family member.
We might have to get them on this show at some point.
I'm sure that I mean I've been told before by employees that they feel that dynamic sometimes. You know, it's funny. I'll tell you a little story that happened. This is like exposing, but
that's okay. Families are dealing with it, so we might as well.
So I was with Christy, and we have a lady that works for us named Janie, and you know, she's amazing. Janie's amazing. Yeah, and she's definitely one of those people that could be doing anything.
Literally.
Right? And she sacrifices to be here.
Thank you, Lord, she does.
Yeah, I'm so glad, man. Janie is so important to what's happening in SOS, especially the future of what's happening at SOS. And so for some reason we're in a car, and I don't remember where we were going, and we're having a conversation about the favorite child. Janie's an only child. The favorite child. Janie has one child, sorry. We're talking about the favorite child. And she says to me, well, obviously Carrie must be your favorite child, because I can tell by the way you talk to Christy and Hannah and know they aren't. And I'm like, what does that mean? You know, but it just, right, like we like do have that value of just being truthful, not ugly ever. No. But being truthful and, you know, straight to the point.
Straight to the point. Janie did recount that story to me because she was like, I didn't mean it. And I was like, it's fine. And she mentioned, she's like, I've seen you and Dee push back against each other. He's like, I just hadn't seen him and Christy do it. And then he did it. And I was like, oh, she's not the favorite. And I was like, that means we are all the favorite.
That's right.
It's not true. And I do know the favorites, but I won't mention it.
No, don't.
I won't mention them. I know them, though. Every child does. Every child knows.
I don't have a favorite.
But would you kind of maybe give us a little bit of insight into some of those areas that have been tough that we've had to kind of readjust and rethink?
I think I can give you areas that's been difficult for me personally. Okay. I mean, I can't really speak for any other family member, but But I think it's important to understand each other's gifting, whether it's family or non-family, right? And you know, honestly, if there's a problem, Christy is going to approach the discovery and the solution. She'll come to the same solution I would, generally. But she's looking for different factors, system breakdowns, to become an answer and to build a structure. So I'm saying this, her approach to the problem is different than mine. Leslie's approach to the problem is different than mine. Sometimes, like you said at the beginning, mine and yours might be similar, but yet it's different. We're a different generation, right? And I think it's really important for me to value, to support, to encourage, and to let others learn through their gifting and not force my way into it. But that's hard sometimes. Sometimes, you know, life is busy and it's difficult, and, you know, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's glorious, and it's, you know, we spend a week in London. You know, but generally speaking, we all have too much to do. Just like everybody listening. Right? That's just how our culture is, just busy. And so if you just did it my way, it'd be faster. And I know what the outcome would be. But
that's all it would be.
There's an arrogance in that that says this is the right outcome. You know, if I allow others' gifting to be who they are, the outcome will be better. Maybe not much different, but better. And so I think just learning in that process, you know, I've been doing some of this stuff, Hannah, for 32 years. So sometimes I can walk into a situation and I can just see what has to happen. It's like an open movie in front of me, right? But other people, they can't do that. But I think other people bring such a different strength to it that's really important for their gifting to be engaged in who they are and for them to be who they are. So I think sometimes that's the biggest challenge for me is I just want to move faster. Anytime you talk to a visionary person, they just want, you know,
make it happen.
Just have it happen. Let's be 30 years down the road. Right now. It doesn't work that way. Right? So.
No, I definitely see that at play. And I mean, there's definitely times where we've been in settings where you're operating in that, and I am frustrated by that because I'm like, actually, there's a really clear path out here, and you have really good understanding and patience to let that develop in a lot of settings where I'm still learning that. I'm half your age, so I'm still learning that, you know, developing that patience in it.
The interesting thing about that is you're half my age, but you have almost the same life experience as me, right? Although you were a child, and you know, one thing I will say is, you know, it was I don't know the right way to tell you, but it was a challenge. To make sure that you were a child. Because we were in difficult stuff. Right?
For sure.
I remember I heard when I was in college, Leslie and I heard Corrie ten Boom. We actually got to meet her and talk to her. And she told this story of when she was a child and she was going to get on a train and she had a heavy suitcase and her dad was carrying it. And she said to her dad, "Hey, can I carry that?" And he said, "No, honey, it's too heavy for you right now. The day will come when you will carry it.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, let me carry it.
That's
And I think it was hard in the places that we were to keep a monitor that you didn't carry something that was too heavy for you as a child. And I know, just transparent wise, you struggle with anxiety, right? And you know, it was just a challenge.
Yeah.
We were going through the same things, but not to put too much on you, and not to put too much on Noah, and not to put too much on whatever. I can remember with Noah, you know, we have these homes with young ladies in them, you know, and Noah would come in and they'd be like, no.
He's very handsome.
The
people watching
kid.
this can't see him, but he's very handsome.
Yeah. And they would be like, no, you know, and he would hate it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Too
And
much
Leslie and I would say, okay, the day he quits hating that, we got to do something different with him. We don't do it with him now. So, yeah. So that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah. Lots of different dynamics. And those dynamics shift through age.
They do, for sure.
The challenges we have now are maybe similar and different.
Yeah.
At the same time.
You know, it's exciting for me because Christy's children are now old enough that they're participating. Yeah. Right? And once again, I see Christy like having to struggle with the things that we had to struggle with, but I see her children like embracing other cultures, loving other people, like creating that value in them to help those that are disadvantaged, that they want to step into situations. They want to feed people. Yeah. You know, I mean,
for sure.
How many times have I been in the car and Gracie's seen somebody and said, Papa D, let's stop and buy a hamburger for that person, you know? Yeah. I mean, yes, let's do that. Yeah. Let's stop and buy a hamburger for that person, because that's a value we want in our family, that you see the broken, that you see the hurting, that you see those people that are in a situation that you can offer hope and a hand into.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely like an agency that has been passed down. Even from, you know, you talking about Carrie in that car going, hello, did you do it? You've been here for a long time. Yeah.
3 trips.
3 trips. I mean, come on, man.
But I was away from her.
To honestly, you know, your grandkids now kind of have that same energy. It's now not just focused on you. I get it. Yeah. Mom gets it. Yeah. Her mom gets it. Like Christy gets it, you know. But there is definitely that agency of ownership of a willingness to step into someone else's problem. Yeah. Of a willingness to say that, to see something tragic and not say, that's not mine to navigate. Yeah. But to step in with people. And there's a lot of tragic things, so I think there's a whole other episode on picking what you're navigating. Because there's so many tragic things. Yeah. But that willingness to always, you know. Yeah. To recognize, you know, the people around you and you can help that. Yeah. And I love that it is fun that all the littles are around. Yeah, it is fun.
I love it too. Because whether they do this or whatever, you know, it's a value. I mean, the value is see the loss, see the hurting, see the broken. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned something in that, as you vaguely said something that I do think is important. You said, regardless of whether they want to do this or not. Yeah. And I think that is an important dynamic that we have not talked about. Is this was never an expectation for any of us.
Absolutely
Even
not.
when we were, you know, younger and we were homeschooling, traveling with you guys. Yeah. I remember there was a lot of conversations around, okay, if you don't want to do this, what does that look like? Yeah. Do you still want to do this? Yeah. And it was never a have to. Yeah. It was a, if you don't feel like you can, or you don't feel like you want to, we are going to have that conversation. We're going to navigate it. And even now, you know, Christy and I will, I mean, all of us just deal with so many things all the time. And it's hard, like you mentioned. And Christy and I will regularly be like, you're not trapped here. To the other one, like, you can leave. Yeah. You're allowed to leave if you decide it. And I think that is a really important dynamic, too, of it was never a forced thing.
Never.
It was always an invitation,
Yeah.
but purely that. No expectation attached to it.
Yeah. For sure.
Which I think can sometimes, there can be pressure to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And it's nice that it's something that we do. I mean, we don't predominantly at this point, it's Christy and I saying it to each other, but we've always felt that energy, I think, from you guys as well. If you want to do something else, that's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we view it as calling. And, if like you said, the places that we've, spent our lives,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times especially hard for females.
Yeah.
The worldview is hard for them. The actual, what's happening on the ground is hard for
Mm-hmm.
them. We're stepping into very difficult situations. And, I always wanted you and Leslie and Christy and Carrie and Noah to know this is an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an invitation you have to say yes to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an invitation.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to say no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that has bled over into other areas of the organization as well. We've had so many conversations where, there'll be a setting where, because of, the realities that I live in, right? I'm a 33-year-old female. I have a different vantage point than you do, and you have a different vantage point than I do. And so there's settings that you are just biologically and naturally better at navigating.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
And watching us both be very present with the other one in the conversation about it, but then stepping back and letting them, which, I mean, honestly, as my personality as your daughter, I want to go get it. I don't want to be told, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to go. I was made for a good fight.
Yeah.
Put me in there, tap me in. I'll put them in their place.
Yeah.
And that's not always the correct answer. And so I'll bow out.
So, you were saying so that there's not a fight that you would back away from.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, put me in there.
Let me at them.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be helpful.
Yeah.
In some situations. But then there's other situations that are maybe more sensitive, that involve, girls.
Yeah.
I mean, that's difficult. I mean, you operate in a lot of spaces that involve very vulnerable girls, and just recognizing, I think your natural father heart would be to, want to make space for them, and recognizing that our vantage points are different there, and we've had tough conversations around that as well. So I think it is a space that all of us have kind of had to lean into.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's true regardless of family or non-family.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's really important for our partners who are non-family to understand that we navigate those spaces, and we're aware of the sensitivity of what's happening there.
For sure.
One of the things that I can tell you that I appreciate about Christy, we do a lot of training for staff. And I mean, you can imagine what it's like to be staff. I mean, you throw, 20, up to 20 really broken teenagers in a house together.
Chaos.
Oh my gosh.
Chaos.
And, I mean, just throwing 20 teenage girls in a house is a daunting process.
Honestly.
But
you put that level of...
then you add the brokenness there. And so we are surrounded by people that have been they're in all levels of that rescue process, and part of that is older ladies that have been through it and they've found healing, and they come and they share their story. And one thing I've always appreciated about Christy is she's very sensitive to, how is this going to affect them? Is this going to trigger them? Is this going to set off some new battle in their life? So it's not ever
Yeah.
just about the ministry happening.
Yeah.
It's about the care for
That
the
individual.
broken at any age. And
Yeah.
so you're good at that. Christy's good at that. I'm a male. Sometimes I'm clueless about
Yeah.
that. And I'm
You're
like,
just not aware of the dynamic.
oh, yeah, that could add
Yeah.
something. And, just to make sure that we add that care into it is good.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's also the celebration of those different things. I think which I think I'll take it from my perspective because, a lot of times people with my personality, they throw a fight at me. They don't want to be told, you actually won't be very well equipped at handling this fight, because instead of being able to take it as just a reflection of, there's some fights for all of us, and recognizing, geopolitically and all different types of dynamics that I might not be good at fighting that fight. We don't want to be told that, we don't want to be told we couldn't. It triggers even that more of, oh, you bet?
Yeah.
Like, you bet I'm not good at fighting that? But really tempering that and letting all of us kind of run in our own lanes.
Yeah.
There is so much strength in that,
Yeah.
because it makes us be able to cover so much more ground than if we were insistent on doing every single, like, great, you're right, I'm not the one to have that conversation.
Right.
I shouldn't.
Right.
And it is an interesting, maybe it's just years of having worked together, because it is something that we all naturally do on the fly. Sometimes we have to have conversations about it, maybe afterwards or, going into it. But I think every family that works together, learning each other's strengths.
Yep.
And really being okay with that being someone else's strength.
Yeah.
And it's not mine, and great.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take that L, I guess, if it means that the organization's winning.
But it's not really an L. Basically, it's saying, I'm still fully in this, and I recognize you're the person to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fully support you
Yeah.
while you do it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
sure.
a moving yourself in a different position.
Yes.
But not changing the motivation of we're all in this together.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Family dynamics outside of work, for a lot of families that work together,
Yeah.
can be very challenging.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I've found myself saying, because, we are engulfed in this.
Yeah.
Like engulfed.
Yeah.
Right? This is our life.
Yeah.
Right? But I like spending time around my family. I like spending time around you. I like spending time around Noah, Carrie and Gary and their kids, Christy and John and their kids. And, we have to be able to create boundaries.
Yeah.
So we don't sit around and have long discussions about solving a problem at work
Yeah.
when we should be playing with our grandkids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think through the years, we've said, okay,
Yeah.
no, we're not going to do that. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
No, we're not. And we've had to be really intentional with that, really intentional. Because if
It just
nothing else, our family needs us to be present,
Yeah.
right? Fully present.
Yeah.
Not solving some problem in Asia or solving
Yeah.
some problem in Central America, but
Yeah.
fully present in,
Yeah.
hey, let's have fun. Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's be intentional in this setting with these people.
Yeah.
And so, that is a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Right?
Yeah. And I think we're all pretty good about not getting our feet, because we all accidentally do it.
Yeah, all of us do.
All of us
It comes
accidentally
out.
do it.
Boom,
It
here
just
comes
happens.
something. And Graceland goes, hey, we're not talking about work
Yeah.
today.
It just happens.
Yeah, you're right. We're not.
But I do think that, ability to say that and not be offended
Yeah,
is
of
a
course.
big deal. I think there's so much room for offense in life in general, but
Yeah.
also when working with family. There's just so much room for offense
Yeah,
if you want offense.
yeah.
And I do think that, especially in family time, but across the board, just that, the ability to be like, oh yeah, you're right,
Yeah,
my bad, and it not be a big deal, just to switch
yeah.
to playing games.
I think thing that helps us with that, we don't really have anybody that likes drama.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful.
That is helpful. There is not a lot of
because we don't
nonsense.
like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
If you had a buddy come to you and say, I'm thinking about hiring my kid, having them work with me.
I have that.
Okay, well, what was that like? What was that conversation like? What did you say? What are the advice? Obviously, it's nuanced for each person, and you having that is challenging, but to not embrace those exact nuances. But what is your encouragement and caution towards them?
So encouragement is there's nothing better. I mean, you get to spend time around your kids. Nothing better than that. There is a thought process out there that of nepotism and that you shouldn't hire family and those things. I think if you have to compromise your values, if you make concessions that you wouldn't make for other people, if you show favoritism, all of that is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's funny because when Noah came to me and said we wanted to do a podcast on this year, my dad was a coach. I played 5 sports. Right? My dad coached me on teams multiple times. It is a challenge to be a coach's child. You have to do everything a little bit better. There are people, it can be all state, all world.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that say, oh, he's playing only because he's his son or he's his whatever, right? But their kid doesn't practice enough. Their kid isn't gifted enough, whatever.
Yeah.
So I grew up around this, which is interesting. Until we started talking about this, I'd never thought of this like this. But I think, the things that happened in athletics growing up sort of played shape to a lot of this.
Yeah.
You have a team.
Yeah.
Right? Michael Jordan didn't win any championships by himself.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant didn't win any championships by himself.
Yeah.
Right? And the better your team is, the better your team is. The better you are. And there's this transition that has to happen in every leader, every father, every mother, where you have to realize you're not in competition with others. Your role is to make others better.
Yeah.
And so I think the challenge with the having your children work with you is that whole viewpoint of, do they feel from the outside, oh, they only get to do that because they're his son or daughter, or are they like one of the best 4 or 5 to be out there playing?
Yeah.
And so I think navigating those things with just valuing everybody, loving everybody, trying to bring everybody to the best.
Yeah.
I think those are pitfalls
For sure.
that you have to watch out for in doing it. You can't compromise integrity. You can't compromise, who could we hire better than Christy?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know them.
Yeah.
And they certainly aren't going to work for what she's working for.
Yeah.
And they certainly aren't going to have the history and values that she does.
Yeah.
Or you, or Noah.
Yeah.
So I think those are the pitfalls, right? The pitfalls are you can't compromise. You have to make sure they're held to an equal standard.
Yeah, for sure.
And same with your other employees.
Yeah.
They have to be held to an equal standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's great. And I definitely think, like, as someone, you know, who is a part of the team here, I think all the things that we've talked about today are areas that I see you function in with all of our staff. You know, there's not a situation that we would step into that Elisha was more equipped to handle than any of us, that we wouldn't be like, Elisha, tap in, man.
Absolutely,
This
man.
is you. This is all you. And I think that's true for everybody on our team. You know, all the positives of it do carry across the board.
Yeah. And you have to have a sense of professionalism. I mean, you call me Dwayne or D, and Hannah and Christy calls me D, and you know, you call Mom Leslie, and you know, there has to be that sense of professionalism in the middle of it, or else it's constant reminder. Yeah. Right.
For other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't need reminding.
They don't need reminding. They actually probably can see it even more than we know.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
We try, but I'm sure if we set one of them in here, they'd be like, oh, well, here are the pitfalls.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe we should do that.
Exactly.
So that, you know.
Exactly.
We have a better point of view.
And, you know, one other thing, you didn't really ask me this, but when I think about our dynamic and the pitfalls of having your children involved in our dynamic, sometimes what we do is dangerous.
Like physically dangerous. Like what SOS does is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're dealing with
organized crime.
Organized crime.
Yeah. Globally.
Drug dealers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a different value set than we do.
For sure.
But, I mean, I'll tell one little story. I won't tell all of it, but, you know, we were in Central America, and I was in a store, and I looked out, and there was a gang guy that had approached you and was talking to you. And somebody might say, how do you know he's a gang guy? Oh, it was obvious. He had gang signs all
the name
over.
of the gang on his body, tattooed on the body.
And they traffic girls.
Yeah, they do.
And, you know, I think in retrospect, he knew what we were doing, and he was trying to see, do you really care about people, or are you just in this for a business? And I think he walked away thinking, okay, they care about people.
Yeah. Because the part of the story you're not going to tell is, I did take a buddy, but he asked for food. Yeah. And so I went and got him food.
Yeah, I went with you.
Yeah. Did you come with me, or did Mom come with me?
I came with you.
You came with me, yeah.
Yeah.
He asked for food, so we
we fed him, right?
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, the thing we all know as a value is abuse people. Yeah. Broken people break people. Yeah. And so there's a story of his life. In fact, that guy even told me, if you recall, he said to me, you know, I used to be just like you. And I said, what does that mean? Yeah. And he said, oh, I used to love God. Now, how does he know I love God? I don't know. I wasn't wearing a Jesus Saves T-shirt, right? But he said to me, you know, but I've done very bad things. And I said to him, but God still loves you. Right? So he had an encounter. He had a story. Yeah. Because we know that broken people break people, and we like broken people. Yeah, for sure. It is a little bit dangerous. But gosh, that's where broken people are. Yeah. That's where at-risk children are. Yeah. Right? For sure. You go to an earthquake, there's no infrastructure. Yeah. There's death everywhere. Yeah. There's no food. There's no water. There's no anything. For sure. And if you enter into that environment, you're at risk. Yeah. But also, if nobody enters in, everybody's at risk. Yeah. Somebody from the outside has to be willing to take that step. Sure. For sure. And I think we've always had this value as a family. We're the first ones in. And we're the last ones to leave. And, you know, I watch all of you live that principle, but I've lived that principle. Leslie's lived that principle, right? Yeah. First one in. Yeah. Last one to leave. Yeah. But that's the heart of Jesus. He's the first one in, last one to leave. Always. So. For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me hang out with you in this space today. Thanks for doing it. And so, Like I said, I'm very excited about this particular series, and I have some friends that are going to come on here that have thriving family businesses, and I can't wait to talk to them because, they go through the same dynamics, and I think sometimes we come across as if everything's perfect and we're doing everything right, and that's not true. We just love each other, and we allow for mistakes. So
it's gonna be great.
Yep, gonna be good.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.